friends, and welcome back to Stronger Every Day. My name is Chrissy, and so today we're going to talk about Romans 12, so the whole chapter. It's one of my favorite books in the Bible is Romans. I just feel like there's so much just wonderful knowledge in that book. And in particular today we're going to talk about Romans chapter 12. Now I'm not going to read it all, but I literally have the entire verse highlighted in my Bible. I feel like just the entire verse is just so powerful. So quickly, Romans 12:2, don't copy the behaviors and customs of this world, but let God transform you into a new person by changing the way you think. Then you will learn to know God's will for your life, which is good and pleasing and perfect. I love that verse of, but let God transform you into a new person, changing the way you think. We've talked so much on the mind. So when you struggle with mental illness, even if you don't struggle with a mental illness, day to day there are things that are challenging, right? There are situations and circumstances that come up in our life that if we picked our ideal day, that wouldn't be part of it, right? And so we're always having to deal with things. And what happens, I'll use myself, I use myself as an example all the time. For me, when a situation or circumstance happens, one of my roosters is crowing out on the back porch, I'm pretty sure. So what I absolutely love about it is that, pretty sure that's Robert crowing on the back porch, got the dogs all excited. What I love about it is it's talking about letting God transform the way that we think. Then after he's transformed the way that we think, then you will learn to know God's will for you. I feel like for me, again, I'll use myself as an example, that I get into a mindset where I am struggling in a big way of feeling inadequate. If there's a situation that happens, I internalize that of how did I handle that? What did I do wrong? It's not that I don't see other people might have had a part in something that went wrong, but I internalize it in myself of how did I cause that situation. And what Romans 2 is teaching us is let God transform you, and it will transform the way you think. Then you will learn to know God's will for you, which is good and pleasing and perfect. It's a battle in our minds. What we believe about ourselves in our hearts and our minds is who we portray ourselves as to the world. And I'm going to do not a series, but a separate video on this. And yes, there are times it talks about it in the Bible where you need to meet people where they are. At that same time, that situation is talking about meeting people where they are in their walk or in their journey, and either winning them over to God, being the hands and feet and showing them God's love, and them being with God, or helping a Christian who's struggling in a journey to come up. It's not bringing yourself down to someone's level or it's not shrinking yourself, right, to fit what someone needs and wants you to be in their life. I struggle with that my entire life, of not being Chrissy, because I've struggled to see myself as worthy or enough or lovable or useful. And so I try to be what everyone else needs me to be in their life. And I find myself that when I need someone, that there's no one there. My husband is there. God is obviously always there. But outside of that, all these people that I've molded myself from and leave that situation coming home exhausted and irritable and angry and full of anxiety, when I need that person to help with something in my situation, they're not there. And that's a hard place to be when you have a servant heart. You're always wanting to help people and be the best you can be for them, and do everything and anything you can do, but you often find yourself alone. And I used to kind of think it used to upset me that, you know, people are failing me. Actually, I was failing Chrissy. I was failing myself, because I was taking time away that I could spend in the Word, spend with God. God is always carried me through my life, but our relationship it's turning into, and I don't mean to demean or say that it's not anything more than this, but it's almost like I find myself talking to him more and more, kind of like, to put it in earthly worldly terms, my best friend. I talk to him throughout the day. I'll see something that happens and just say, thank you, Lord, or thank you for protecting me for that, or God, I want to pray for that person. And I find myself talking with him all day. And I don't want to say best friend, because I don't want to lower that relationship to that, but for reference, right? And it's letting him, it's spending time in his Word, letting him change the way I think, so that I can then go out and be his hands and feet. We have several videos coming up about boundaries, about being enough. You know, are you enough? Just a ton of future videos that I'm pretty excited coming up. But we have to stop pursuing gifts that God hasn't given us. Stop pursuing gifts that God hasn't given us. If he's called you to preach, then preach. If he's called you to teach, then teach. If he's called you to serve, then serve. If he's called you to be a giver, then be a giver. If he's called you to lead, lead. If he's called you to encourage, encourage. But stop looking at what everyone else's gifts everyone else the gifts they have, and feeling there's something wrong with you because you don't have that gift. Maybe God didn't give you that gift. Focus in on what God's gift is for you, and hit it running, hit the ground running towards that gift. We are very much servants. We enjoy that life. It's a lonely life. I feel very blessed that I was able to find a spouse that has that same heart as I do. So at least I have somebody in my life that is similar to me in that aspect, that we're both servant hearts. But it's also very lonely, because as this world continues, it's more about me, and less about helping others. I think, you know, we tend to go on extremes, and I've certainly done that, where I put myself on the dead bottom last. And you cannot pour from an empty cup. You cannot pour from an empty cup. If you see someone drowning, I've said before, we volunteer for an agency. One of the things we do is rescue swimmer. And so if we see someone drowning, we don't jump in this, right? Because if I jump in the water and I swim out to rescue that swimmer, and they're upset, they're scared, they're, you know, a plethora of emotions, and they start pushing me under, I'm not going to be able to save them. They're going to drown me, and then they're probably going to drown as well. I have to get geared up quickly and then get in the water so that I can support both of us and get us to safety. You can't pour from an empty cup. We go on one way where we want to be humble, and yes, we need to be humble. Yes, we need to be loving. Yes, we need to have a servant heart. At the same time, you have to pour into yourself as well so that you can maintain. We're going to talk a little bit about, you know, finding your group, and I think it's so important to keep this in mind. I've said it in a video before. Jesus ate with sinners. He talked with sinners. He preached to sinners. He was around sinners. He blessed sinners and helped them in their times. However, he had his core 12 people around him. And then in that, he had his core 3, okay? If Jesus needed God-loving, God-fearing people around him in his time on earth, friends, so do we. I know people say, well, I don't have to go to church to be a Christian. And I believe you don't. You don't have to go to church to be a Christian, but it certainly helps. You might want to be a pro football player, but if you never set foot on a football field, you're probably not going to start at the age of 18 in the NFL, right? Or age 20 or age 22 or however. If you've never put the effort in, I've used this before, we want to be powerhouse Christians without any time in the Word. And it doesn't work that way. It certainly doesn't work that way when you struggle with a mental illness, when you don't spend time with God. And I think people will say, occasionally I'll get a comment about, well, I struggle with ADHD, or I struggle with, there's different attention disorders out there where you struggle with focus, you struggle with attention. There's so many different ways. Just find one that works for you. My husband can sit here and read a chapter in the Bible, and by the second chapter, his mind is wandering, and he'll come back and he'll come back and he'll come back. And I've talked to him in detail about, read that one chapter and then study that chapter. Stop, read that chapter, pray about it, get what God's giving you through that chapter, and then do some research on that chapter and learn the history of that chapter. I love Bible history. To me, it puts the Bible in so much more depth than just reading the verse, learning the history, learning how it was, like what the times were then, and how the world was then, and why things are phrased that way. They're still very applicable to today. A lot of people think this is just a storybook or a history book of old times, and it's not relevant today, friends. That couldn't be further from the truth. Like, things that are in this Bible are coming true today. Just look at the condition of our world. But it's learning your gifts and learning that, just because you don't have a certain gift that someone else has, I can't sew. I've tried to do like cross stitch. I've tried to do needlepoint. I've tried to do crochet. I love watching people do it. I love that type of work. I think it's fascinating. It's intriguing. I gave away, a friend of mine does do quite a bit. And I gave away like the big grocery bags full, like that you would get at like TJ Maxx or somewhere, a store when you buy like a big, like comforter size bags. I gave away 2 bags full of yarn and several of the supplies to a friend of mine who uses those. I put the books that I had bought into the yard sale. I love crafting, and I am okay at some crafts, but some things I'm not so good at, and I honestly don't have the time or the space to really do it. So, I'm not envious of other people that can do it. I think that's amazing. It would be great if I could, but that's not my gift. I'm not pursuing that. I am not I'm not a great encourager. I really don't think that. You guys might think a little bit differently, or maybe you think, well, clearly you're not. But I tend to analyze every aspect. That's something that I'm actively working on. It's a vice for me. It's something that I'm actively working on. But Nick and I talked about this the other day. A situation can happen, and by the morning, he's forgot about it. Like, he has not thought actually before morning, when we get done speaking about it, it's gone in his mind. He does not think about it. However, I am still thinking about it weeks and months later, about how to try to work that situation out. And so it's been refreshing to not, even though I still do that, I'm not at the level I was 17 months ago. Friends, it gets better. You just have to put in the effort. You have to put in the work to get better. God it's a give and take. You have to work with God. He can just, and you're healed, or your situation's better, but he's not a puppet. He's not a magic trick, right? You have to put in the work. We wouldn't expect that from any other relationship on earth, but for some reason we expect that of God. We don't spend any time with him. We don't study his word. We don't talk. We don't pray. We don't listen to his word. But then when we need him, we expect what we need to be done right then. Every time. We only come to him once a year and we want a miracle, but we spend no time with him. How would you feel if someone only came to you? And we all have people like that in our lives. The only reason our phone rings or they're at our door is because there's a problem and they need us. They need something. But if we ever needed anything in return, they're busy. They got things they got to do, that is very difficult when you have a servant heart, when you love to serve, you love to help. One of the things that I love the most is being able to do little things that nobody even knows about, that bless somebody in some way. They have no idea it was me. They don't need to know it was me. It's especially if you get the opportunity to kind of see their face. Man, that's just, I love that. I love serving. I love being the one people can call and say, I need this, I need that, can you help, can you do? I love that, but sometimes that's a very lonely life. Sometimes it's a very lonely life. Romans 12, I encourage you to read that entire chapter in Romans 12, all of Romans 12. To me, it speaks to, it's showing us kind of a guideline, right? So don't copy the behaviors of this world. And friends, that's hard, because when someone hurts us, our tendency, our flesh, is to defend ourselves and hurt them back. And it's hard. Sometimes it feels like you are ripping open because you are choosing to love that person through what they've said. God has been helping me so gracious and loving of him to, when a person kind of comes at me with a situation and they're angry and they're mad, or they react to a situation a certain way, he has really helped me to see, and I'm not perfect at it, I still have my faults, but to not see the person that's right at me and the anger that's coming through, but to see that there's a reason for that behind it, right? Don't judge what they're coming at you with. Figure out what the reasoning is behind it and try to help that situation. And that's hard, because what I want to do is say, first off, you're not going to speak to me like that. You're going to back up, you're going to change your attitude, and then we can talk. But you're not going to speak to me like that, because I can match toe for toe. That's what my flesh wants to say, right? That's what makes my flesh feel good, when I can come back and say that, because sadly, and I probably still could if I wanted to, or really just lost control of my attitude, but I can still be that. I used to be that person, and theoretically I guess I still could be that person who says, no, hold on a minute, let's dance, let's roll, but God has been gracious and blessed me to stop seeing the person with the situation and see what's behind that. So read that verse, friends. I think that you will love it. I end every video this way. I'm sorry for all the animal noises, the roosters, the dogs. Colt just knocked the remote on the floor. That's just the life here at the home. We have fur babies and they make noise. So I end every video this way, friends. It's always my hope in my heart that you feel this, and man, sometimes I need to hear it too. God loves you. I love you. Your family loves you. Your friends love you, and we need you here. We'll see you in the next one, friends. Bye.